stared at my phone in disbelief as the security app notification lit up my screen. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m., and the footage showed my mother-in-law, Sandra, and sister-in-law, Melissa, practically skipping out my front door, dressed in their concert outfits, leaving my 12-year-old daughter, Emma, alone with 6 children under the age of 7. "They'll be fine," I heard Sandra's voice through the camera's audio. "Emma's so mature for her age. Stop worrying and let's go. I'm not missing the opening act. My name is Olivia Parker, and I'm a pediatric nurse who works nights at the local children's hospital. Tonight was supposed to be my first shift back after a week off, and Sandra had volunteered to watch Emma and my 5-year-old son, Lucas. What I didn't expect was for her to invite Melissa over with her 4 kids, plus her friend's young daughter, and then decide to abandon them all for a surprise concert. I immediately called Emma. My heart raced as I waited for her to pick up. "Mom?" Her voice was tight with anxiety. "I don't know what to do. Aunt Melissa's twins won't stop fighting, and Lucy keeps crying for her mom." I could hear the chaos in the background, screaming, crying, and what sounded like something crashing to the floor. Emma was trying to sound brave, but I could tell she was overwhelmed. "Listen to me carefully, sweetheart," I said, already grabbing my keys and rushing to my supervisor's office. "I'm coming home right now. Just keep everyone in the living room, okay? Put on a movie if you can." "But Grandma said they'll be back in an hour," Emma protested weakly. She said I was old enough to handle it. My blood boiled at Sandra's manipulation. She'd always been critical of my overprotective parenting, constantly comparing Emma to how she'd raised Melissa. When Melissa was 12, she was practically running the household. Was her favorite refrain, conveniently forgetting the therapy Melissa needed later in life. "This isn't your responsibility," I assured Emma. "They had no right to put you in this position." Thankfully, my supervisor, Beth, understood the emergency. 20 minutes later, I burst through my front door to find absolute chaos. Emma was trying to separate Melissa's 6-year-old twins, who were pulling each other's hair. Lucas was hiding under the dining room table, hands over his ears. 4-year-old Lucy, Melissa's friend's daughter, was curled up in a corner, crying for her mother, and Melissa's youngest, 3-year-old Jack, had somehow gotten into the art supplies and was gleefully painting the walls. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Emma said, tears finally spilling over. I tried to stop him, but then the twins started fighting and Lucy wouldn't stop crying. I pulled her into a tight hug. "You have nothing to apologize for. This is not your fault." As I surveyed the damage while calling the other children's parents, my security app pinged again. Sandra and Melissa were posting Instagram stories from the concert, champagne glasses in hand, captioning them, "Much needed girls' night." #no regrets. Lucy's mother arrived first, furious after hearing what had happened. "They left my daughter with a 12-year-old. Without even asking me." She was already on the phone with her husband, who I knew was a family law attorney. By the time Sandra and Melissa stumbled through the door at midnight, giggling and still filming for social media, they found me sitting calmly at the kitchen table. The other children had been picked up by their parents, and Emma was asleep in her room, finally relaxed after I'd assured her multiple times that she'd done nothing wrong. "Oh, lighten up." Sandra rolled her eyes at my expression. "The kids are fine, aren't they? Emma needs to learn responsibility." "Responsibility?" I stood up slowly. "You mean like being responsible for the safety of 7 children? Or being responsible enough to ask parents' permission before abandoning their kids? That kind of responsibility?" Melissa snorted, still filming. "God, you're so dramatic. This is why Emma's going to grow up sheltered and afraid of everything." I smiled, and they both faltered slightly at my calm demeanor. "You know what's interesting?" I pulled out my phone. "I installed security cameras last week. I have footage of you leaving, footage of everything that happened while you were gone, and all your social media posts from tonight. I wonder what Child Protective Services would think about this situation." The color drained from their faces as the reality of what they'd done began to sink in. But I wasn't finished, not by a long shot. They had no idea what I had planned for them, and by the time I was done, they'd regret ever putting my daughter in that position. The next morning, I received a barrage of texts from Sandra and Melissa, swinging between angry accusations and desperate apologies. "You're completely overreacting," Sandra wrote. "I raised 3 children. I know what I'm doing." Melissa was more direct. "Delete those videos now, or I swear you'll regret it." I ignored them both and focused on Emma, who was still shaken from the previous night. She sat at the breakfast table, pushing her cereal around without eating. "Am I in trouble?" she asked quietly. "Grandma said I should have been able to handle it." I set down my coffee and took her hand. "Listen to me carefully. What they did was wrong. Adults who care about you don't put you in dangerous situations or make you responsible for other people's children. They were supposed to protect you, not use you." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lucy's father, James Harrison, the attorney. "Would you be willing to meet this morning? There are some things we need to discuss." An hour later, I sat in his office while he reviewed the security footage. His expression grew darker with each passing minute. "This is beyond irresponsible," he said finally. "They left 7 minors, the oldest being 12, without any adult supervision. They were drinking at the concert while responsible for children. They posted evidence of their negligence on social media, and based on the footage, this wasn't a sudden emergency, it was premeditated." "What are my options?" I asked. "Well," he leaned forward, "several of the other parents are considering legal action. But there's something else you should know. Your mother-in-law has been posting about babysitting services on local Facebook groups. She's been charging parents to leave their children with your daughter while she supervises, except, based on the pattern we're seeing, she's not actually supervising." My blood ran cold. "She's been what?" He turned his computer screen to show me multiple posts from Sandra, advertising experienced childcare at reasonable rates. The comments were filled with local parents expressing interest. "She's been using Emma as free labor," I realized, feeling sick, "and profiting from it." "Which is illegal," James confirmed. "Child labor laws exist for a reason." When I returned home, I found Sandra waiting on my doorstep. Her earlier bravado had been replaced by nervous energy. "Let's talk about this reasonably," she began, trying to take control of the situation. "I know you're upset, but you're making a big deal out of nothing. Emma needs to learn. To be exploited?" I interrupted. "To be used as free childcare while you pocket the money." She paled. "Who told you about that?" "Does it matter? What matters is that you've been endangering children and taking advantage of my daughter. It stops now." "You can't prove anything," she said, but her voice wavered. I pulled out my phone and played one of the security clips. In it, Sandra was clearly heard telling Emma that she needed to earn her keep by watching the younger kids while she ran errands. "I have months of footage," I said calmly. "Every time you left her alone with other people's children. Every time you collected money from parents who thought they were paying for adult supervision. Every single incident." "You're going to destroy this family," she hissed. "Over what? A few babysitting jobs. Some harmless fun at a concert?" "No," I replied. "You and Melissa destroyed the trust in this family when you decided my daughter was your personal babysitting service. When you left 7 children alone so you could go drinking. When you prioritized your social media presence over their safety." I stepped closer, my voice low but firm. "You have until tomorrow to contact every parent you've taken money from and return it. You will post a public apology on all the Facebook groups where you advertise your services. And you will never ever put Emma in that position again." "And if I don't?" she challenged, though her confidence was clearly shaken. I smiled. "Then every parent gets the security footage. Every local mommy group sees how you really operate, and Child Protective Services gets a very interesting report about your child care practices." She left without another word. But I knew this wasn't over. Sandra and Melissa had always gotten away with their behavior through manipulation and gaslighting. They wouldn't give up control easily. But this time, I had evidence. This time, I had other parents on my side. And this time, I was ready to protect my daughter, no matter what it took. Sandra and Melissa's retaliation came swiftly. By evening, they had launched a smear campaign on social media, painting me as an unstable, controlling mother who was damaging Emma by being overprotective. "Emma needs strong female role models," Sandra posted, alongside photos of herself with my daughter. "Some people are too paranoid to let children grow and learn responsibility." What they didn't expect was for Lucy's mother, Sarah Harrison, to respond with the security footage from that night. The video of 7 unsupervised children, including a crying toddler and fighting twins. While Sandra and Melissa posted drunk selfies from the concert spread through local parenting groups like wildfire. The comments were brutal. "Who leaves SEVN kids with a 12-year-old? I paid her to watch my kids last month. Was my 6-year-old actually being watched by a child? Someone needs to report this. Melissa tried damage control, claiming the video was taken out of context. But more parents came forward, sharing stories of times they paid Sandra for childcare, only to later discover their children had been left with Emma. My phone rang. It was my husband, Tom, who was away on a business trip. I just saw Mom's posts, he said, his voice tight with anger. And the video. Why didn't she tell me she was leaving the kids to go to a concert? Because she knew you'd say no, I replied, just like she never told you about using Emma as her personal babysitter for profit. There was a long pause. I'm coming home early. This ends now. The next morning, Sandra and Melissa showed up unannounced, barging in before I could close the door. You've ruined everything, Melissa shrieked, waving her phone. Do you know how many angry messages I'm getting? Parents are demanding refunds. That's what happens when you scam people, I said calmly. Actions have consequences. We didn't scam anyone, Sandra protested. Emma was perfectly capable. She's 12. I cut her off. She's a child, not your employee. And speaking of employment, how much money did you make from all those babysitting jobs? Because the labor board might be interested in that. They both went quiet. In the silence, we heard a car door slam. Tom walked in, his face stormy as he looked at his mother and sister. I've seen everything, he said quietly. The videos, the posts, the babysitting scheme. What were you thinking? Tommy, Sandra started, her voice switching to a wounded tone. Your wife is blowing this out of proportion. You know how dramatic she can be. Stop, Tom's voice was firm. I saw you leave my children alone. I saw you profit from putting my daughter in an impossible situation. No more manipulation, no more excuses. What do you want from us? Melissa asked, finally realizing the gravity of their situation. First, every parent gets refunded, I said. Every single one. Second, you post a public apology admitting what you did. Third, you stay away from Emma unless another adult is present. You can't keep us from seeing her, Sandra protested. Actually, we can, Tom replied, and we will, until you prove you can be trusted, which, right now, seems unlikely. After they left, Emma came downstairs. She'd been listening from her room. Are Grandma and Aunt Melissa going to hate me now? She asked quietly. Tom knelt beside her. No, sweetheart. They're angry because they got caught doing something wrong. None of this is your fault. 3 months later, things had changed dramatically. Sandra and Melissa's reputation in the community was shattered. Several parents had filed complaints about the unauthorized childcare operation, and they had to refund thousands of dollars in babysitting fees. More importantly, Emma was flourishing. Without the pressure of being Sandra's unpaid babysitter, she joined the school drama club and made new friends. She was acting like a 12-year-old should. Sandra still occasionally tried to guilt-trip us through flying monkeys, claiming we destroyed the family. But the security cameras stayed up and the boundaries stayed firm. You know what, Mom? Emma said one evening as we baked cookies together. I used to think I was bad at taking care of kids because I couldn't handle it like Grandma said I should. But now I know it wasn't my job to handle it at all. I hugged her tightly, grateful that she'd learned this lesson now rather than spending years thinking she wasn't good enough. Sometimes the hardest part of being a parent isn't protecting your children from strangers. It's protecting them from family members who think their love gives them the right to cause harm.